Israel has bombed the southern suburbs of the Lebanese capital Beirut for the first time in nearly a week. This comes a day after the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met visiting US officials to discuss a possible deal to end the war in Lebanon. Well, let's go live now to my colleague Ben Brown, who's in Jerusalem for us. Ben, when we spoke to you 24 hours ago, the Lebanese Prime Minister was cautiously optimistic about a ceasefire, but now a very different message after these latest developments.
Yeah, that's right, Lakshmi. In fact, he was talking about a ceasefire maybe even within hours yesterday. Well, that certainly has not transpired. What we've seen has been more violence, more hostilities, more death and destruction across the Lebanese border. Within the last 24 hours, 7 people killed in northern Israel after a wave of Hezbollah rocket attacks. 5 were killed near the town of Metula. This was an Israeli farmer and 4 agricultural workers from Thailand who were with him. And then on the outskirts of Haifa, in an olive grove near a kibbutz, a woman and her adult son were killed as well. So a total of 7 dead in Israel. And after that, we then saw a wave of Israeli airstrikes overnight on the southern suburbs of Beirut. They haven't hit those southern suburbs for a few days now, and that is where traditionally Hezbollah have had their stronghold, and that has been a frequent target of Israeli airstrikes. Well, meanwhile, in Gaza, let's just look at the situation there, because in the last few minutes, we've had reports that 10 Palestinians have been killed in an Israeli strike, as you mentioned there, Lakshmi, on a school that was sheltering displaced people in Nuseirat. That's in central Gaza. We'll get more details on that as they come into us. But we already know that the United Nations have been saying that in Gaza, children are paying a very heavy price in terms of the war that's been raging there, and that they're paying a price for a war that they didn't start. Our correspondent Fergal Keane, who's here in Jerusalem, has compiled this report on the story of a little girl in Gaza who was in a photograph.
Everyone's scattered because the Israeli army ordered them to. Because death was everywhere. And it didn't matter who you were or what age, you had to go. The photographer, probably an Israeli soldier, captured this image a week ago. The men made to strip for searching, some of them elderly, as the army hunted for weapons and anyone linked to Hamas. But look to the left, in the crowd, a small child, facing away from the soldiers. Who was she? What became of her? Julia Abu Warda, 3.5 years old. These photos were taken a month ago, before the encounter at the Israeli checkpoint, before the order to go. Our colleague found Julia in Gaza City yesterday, 1 week after the photograph was taken, but with the family's memories still vivid.
There were soldiers on the tanks and soldiers on the ground. They approached the people and started firing above their heads. People were pushing against each other during the shooting.
They were escaping the hell that Jabalia has become. A landscape in which human survival is not possible.
We saw destruction and bodies scattered on the ground. They were pointing their guns at us and ordering us to stay seated. It was very bad.
In Gaza, it's not so much that children grow old before their time. It is that time stands still. They're trapped, each day like the one before, the trauma accumulating. Julia's 7-year-old cousin was killed by an Israeli drone strike in the street where he played.
It used to be normal. She would run and play. But now, whenever there's shelling, She points and says, "Plane." She looks up and points out the drone flying over us.
It's hard to call Julia lucky in a place like this, but she is fortunate in the family that holds her close. Fergal Keane, BBC News, Jerusalem.
A harrowing picture there of life and death in Gaza at the moment. Just one update to bring you from Lebanon, and Lebanon's health ministry has said that 6 medics were killed and 4 wounded in multiple Israeli attacks yesterday, and in the wake of that the World Health Organization have said they are deeply concerned about rising attacks on health workers in southern Lebanon. That's the latest from Jerusalem. Lakshmi, back to you in the studio.
Ben Brown, thank you.